hopefully run progression for non-runners. Hopefully you guys all know me. I'm Barbara. I coach here at University of Denver. I've had a couple athletes that I've recruited that had kind of multi-sport backgrounds, but may not have been runners in the past. So we've done a run progression for them to help them get situated and adapt to running before transitioning to full-on triathlon. So let's see, next slide. There we go. Okay, so a couple topics that we're going to talk about today, challenges for new runners, the value of a structured plan, and then key goals for beginners. So challenges is, you know, we all want to be good at everything like really quickly, but the key here is like you have to kind of do slow and steady wins the race. So you have to really like be conservative at the start and just do some kind of baseline running and let your body adapt. Running is really hard on our bodies, and it's really high like fatigue, and it's just hard on all your joints and your muscles and everything. If you also like start out too fast or add speed too quickly, you face injury risk. And if some of them are coming from another background or haven't done a ton of running, that's kind of the unknown of like, okay, what am I getting myself into? So the value of a structured plan, you can have a plan, but you also have to be adaptable with progressing a non-runner. So starting out with just, like 10, 20 minutes a couple times a week. And you might have to do that for a little while just to let them again adapt and let their body absorb the training before you ever even talk about adding in any speed or anything. And also personally, like I had some health issues and I came back to running after kind of taking like a year and a half hiatus. And like I can't emphasize enough like the power of a run walk progression. So it lets your heart rate come down. It also lets your body adapt, and then you can gradually add in more running and less walk breaks. Even athletes like Ben Canute use run walk progression. So like all the way at the top of the sport, it's a really great like recovery tool for just still getting some running and but not just beating yourself up. And then I think we have these really like again high level goals for ourselves. So just setting the stage that like running is supposed to be fun at first, and it's not supposed to just be like kill yourself and go a 5K PR. So you have to really like slow things down and like kind of celebrate the small wins. So we're talking about, incorporating a lot of rest, and then also we'll talk about just using other benchmarks as like outside factors instead of just going, hey, I want you to run 10-minute pace for 20 minutes. Like just go by, rate of perceived effort. So establishing a running habit, I talked about doing a consistency in your routine. So I would start out with, I said 3 20-minute runs. If they are really coming from zero background, you can even start with a 1 minute run, 1 minute walk, 1 minute run, 1 minute walk. You can gradually increase that. So 2 minute run, 1 minute walk, 2 minute run, 1 minute, three up, and all the way up to when you're running about 9 or 10 minutes. And that's when I would start to increase the actual running time. But I would get up to 20 minutes of running. And you're going to have to listen to the athlete, and they're going to have to listen to their bodies so that they're not getting shin splints is a really big area of injury that you could face, and stress fractures because they just haven't had that running on their bodies yet. So starting easy to avoid burnout, and again, like just make it fun, introduce it, and then gradually adapting. Some other ways that you can add in some workouts. Trail running is a really great tool anytime for a recovery run. It's going to use different muscles and different joints because of the uneven ground, and It's softer. If you're allowed to, I've also done this for injury prevention too, or like if somebody's like starting to get shin splints, aqua jogging, and you can kind of do the same thing. You can do like 1 minute easy, 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy, 1 minute hard. You can do fartleks with this. So we get like a little belt. You can get them on Amazon. So that's a great way to add some adaptation without that high risk or high uh, hitting on your body. So that's a great one. And then running on dirt or gravel is also, if we have a lot of trails around here. So just finding what works for you and like where you're at. And then we have an Alter G available too. That's kind of a luxury, but that's another tool. It takes the weight off of the run, and you can gradually add it back on. So what I've been talking about is just starting out, being really like kind and giving yourself grace when you're starting out running and being kind to your athlete. And like they're learning a new sport, learning about running. So just starting out, having fun, not going for specific things. Some other ways that you can kind of take the pressure off the pace is like use a heart rate. Just put your heart rate on your watch, and say, hey, like I want you to stay under 155 for this run. So that also helps them not be like, okay, I'm not running, 9 minute pace right now, but they are just focused on their heart rate. That's another tool that I use throughout the year for our recovery runs. Because even when you tell somebody to go out and do an easy run, they're like, oh, I was just, running easy pace, but they're actually running like 8 minute pace, and that's not recovery. So that's also another great recovery tool. Other measurements. So like we have a park, and I know that it's like 2.5 miles around the loop. So say, hey, just go run a 2.5 mile lap around and just take it whatever pace you can do today. And we've actually like taken watches away from people too if they're too focused on their running. So that's another kind of just take we're so focused on the pace and this and this and this. So try to make it fun. You could do games, soccer, frisbee, something like that. And like that's also a way to incorporate them into the team and not make them feel like isolated, like, oh, I'm just doing this completely different running program than the rest of the team. We've also done, yes, Kyle.
Barbara, I've dealt with this some, and I kind of want your take on it when you're talking about like them running with the team and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. A lot of people coming from a swim background, like they can kind of force themselves to keep up, like they've got the aerobic capacity. Have
Yeah.
you done anything with, hey, we're sending everybody out for a group run and I'm getting in trouble because my swimmers are taking off with my group and they
Uh-huh.
can do it, but they're doing something completely different than what everybody else is doing? Like, do you have ways that you've dealt with that in the past?
Hmm. Well, my next thing that I was going to say is like we run on the track. And so that's a good way because it's like kind of in a collective area. We've also done, like a trail run where we do an out and back. But I guess I don't, in that situation, I'm like thinking about like holding them back and like making them go separately, but that feels like punishment. So I don't know if, maybe I was even thinking like putting them on a bike when they're going out for a longer run so they can still feel like they're part of the team. I don't know. Do you have any ways that you've dealt with that?
I've told some of them before, like they can run with the group until we finish the first like 15 minutes of warm up, and then they need to kind of drop back to a more manageable pace.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't quite figured that out yet. I guess, do you guys do anything different on the track? Do you like start all together, or do you kind of break them up by? And I don't want like,
Yeah, we will do the warm up together, and then we do like dynamics and strides. So that's also a way that we're still doing it. And then we even not just that individual, we'll kind of do a couple different workouts or pacing and stuff, so it doesn't feel so much like I'm doing something so separate. Like they're still being a part of it. And I think talking to the rest of the team about like being really like bring in this person, remember when you started, and it kind of gives you like an appreciation for where you came from and how far you've come. So I mean, I have a girl this year, Olivia, who's going to be on the team, and I've been doing kind of a run walk progression with her, and I the team knows that she just doesn't have the same background that they do, but they're like, oh my gosh, like she's just so excited about everything she wants to learn, and she's so positive. So I think it also just kind of brings back everybody back down to like when they first started and remember why, and so that can kind of bring back the spark and energy for your team too.
Okay, thank you.
Jody,
Hi, good morning. Um,
morning.
a couple of questions. You talked
Sure.
about aqua jogging,
Mhm.
and I use the pool and have done some workouts in the pool. Can you give me an example of some aqua jogging, like how long you would have somebody? Is it a 20 minute? Is it 30
Mhm.
minute? And kind of describe some of the sets that you would do.
Sure. So you can go longer in the pool because it is not as high intensity. And it's also a great way to like work on your form. You have to like work pretty hard. It's a great workout. So we have done like a pyramid. So 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. And when I'm saying off, it's just like easy. And you go all the way up to like 9 minutes for a long one. But you could go up to like 5 or 6 minutes for kind of like a midweek. We had one girl that got injured last spring, and we did aqua jogging throughout the summer into the fall, and she was going up to like an hour and 15, an hour and a half. She's never gonna do aqua jogging again, but she came back and she ran like just as fast or faster than she did before. So that's one way. Even doing, you can kind of like relate it to a bike workout too. You can do like 4 minutes moderate and then 1 minute pickup, or like 2 minutes, at 80%, 3 minutes recovery, and do that like 4 or 5 times as your main set. So it's pretty versatile, whatever you need to get out of it. It's kind of boring to just do the aqua jogging, so giving it some structure, it makes it more interesting and goes by a little bit faster. So I would say if you're going to do like a 20-minute run and replace it with aqua jog, do it for 40 minutes. You can kind of like double it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions right now? All right. Okay, so we've talked about the run walk method, the technique overview of this. So we can start out, more conservative and building it out. I've kind of already highlighted on this that it helps bring your heart rate down, and it just lets you slowly add more stress to your run walk. So you have to really, I think it's also just like a learning curve to tell people that this is okay to do. And I use like I said, Ben Canute as an example that like very high level athletes do it because they're like, oh, walking, like I don't want to walk, during a run. That seems like silly to me. But once you get them to kind of buy in and see that it's a great tool. We even use it on track workouts too, like after a hard interval. It's still active recovery, but it allows you to go faster when you and like let your heart rate come down some more. And then adjusting at intervals gradually. So starting with short run intervals, I use the time first before distance. So, 30 seconds, 1 minute, before jumping up to like, we're going to do a quarter mile or half a mile or 800s, like that. And then injury risk and reduction benefits. Sorry, I'm kind of saying some of these things a little bit ahead of time, but lower joint and muscle stress, you aid your recovery, prevent overtraining, and improve your mental stamina and endurance. And you can just improve like gradually over time and see how much you're improving, which is great. All right. So progression key. Um, you can't really see this very well. Sorry. Oopsies. Oh no. Okay. Muscle strength. So we strengthen our muscles by stressing them out and then giving them a recovery. So that works with the run walk method, but also thinking of recovering outside of your training too is really important. So, cold plunge baths, putting your legs up, if you have access to Normatec boots or your athletic trainer, massages, anything that you can do to help that recovery is just going to let your body absorb the training a little bit more and help you get back and then prevent that injury prevention. And this is important. We do three different sports, adding in strength training. Also, it's just we're stressing out our body all the time. So the recovery component is so important in all of this, not just in a run progression, but throughout your life as an athlete. So I think another interesting part of this is like avoiding consecutive hard workouts. There needs to be built-in recovery in your workouts too. So not doing back-to-back like hard workouts or multiple days in a row, especially when you're starting to get into the sport. There might be like times where you're like, okay, we're gonna do like a couple hard workouts, but it's not sustainable to do a lot of hard workouts all the time because you're stressing out your body. You're not giving it adequate time for recovery. So just remembering that as you're adding in the swim and the bike and the run and the strength training, I think it's just kind of you're always adapting the plan and listening to your athletes and kind of watching them and learning more about yourself as a coach. So I always do like one hard workout, one easy workout in a day, unless we're doing a specific, I want you guys to be really tired for like your run tomorrow so that we can run on tired legs, and like also telling them that so that they know what's coming and they're not showing up and they're like, oh my gosh, another, hard workout. So easy runs and cross training. We're already doing a lot of cross training with our sport anyways. So swimming is a great recovery tool. Biking again is a great cross training for running. And I've learned like over the course of my coaching career that like running and biking are also pretty relatable. If you're like making gains in the bike, you're also gonna make gains in the run. So those are all things. I think another important piece of this is we do a lot of swim, bike, run, and it's all back and forth. And adding in mobility into your routine is super important to maintain that open hips, open body, so that your muscles aren't tightening up and we're not just using the same muscle groups all the time. So mobility, we incorporate that every twice a week before we start our strength training program. And we also do like a hip opening circuit that I could share with you guys also after like our track workouts and our long runs. So I think that's been a really great injury prevention, being proactive and just staying on top of it. Strength training is also a great tool to strengthen your legs and your muscles. We do a lot of single leg stuff for the running off the bike. Also, like just opening up your hips and being able to have high turnover off the bike. Yeah. Okay. So just some other ways that you can make the training more interesting. So setting benchmarks. We do benchmark training in practice, and then you're going to build up to a race eventually. But even breaking it into pieces, like we've done some track meets, like a 3K or a 5K. And then in practice, we've done baseline testing on the track, but I've also done it in places around campus that we know that we can go back to and like we can repeat it. So I think that's another great tool that it's not just like focus like it's this distance, but like if you take it and we have like a park that we go to and it's about a 1K around and it's kind of slightly uphill on one side and slightly downhill on the other side. And they're like, oh, we know this loop around the park and it's not exactly a 1K, but we know, hey, this is my time. And then like you can improve it the next time around. So being creative with that. And then I've talked about it a lot today, but prioritizing the enjoyment and the fun. It should be fun. This shouldn't be that serious. You should enjoy what you do, and you can work hard, but still enjoy the process. And I touched on this before too, but celebrating the small wins, like just looking back at how far you've come and appreciating the process. It's not just about like winning the race, it's all about all the small things in the middle and who you're becoming in the process. So, how did you like when you were starting out? You were just doing a 1 minute run and 1 minute walk, and now you're doing 10 minute run, and now you're doing a 20 minute run, and now you're doing a full triathlon. So, all those little things, you're never going to have an opportunity again to like start being a triathlete, to start a run progression. So the the benchmarks can kind of start coming quickly, and then they might like be like, oh, it's like always like I get a PR and everything. So it's a really fun time to start out and see all your wins and gains. Okay. I did a sample run program, and you like I said, you have to follow the athlete and what they're saying to you, but just week one, starting out 3 20-minute runs of a run walk, 4 minute run, 1 minute walk. You might have to repeat this for a couple weeks, even a month or 2 months, really, depending on your athlete. The second step could just be adding a little bit, like I kind of use a rule of thumb as like not increasing more than 10%. So it's pretty conservative, but you're not going to just slam them with, an hour run the second week out of the gate. So 20 minutes the first day, 25 minutes on Wednesday, and then 20 minutes again. So it's just a slow, gradual adaptation. If they absorb that, continue that, for a couple weeks, and then you can add running and a little bit more speed. So Monday's a 20-minute easy run, and then fartlek. So that's a 2 minute pickup, 3 minute easy, 2 minute pickup, 3 minute easy. So I would do like a 5 to 10 minute warm up on that, and then do the fartlek a couple minutes. And even if you need a little bit more warm down, using walking as another form of warm down. So if they get to the 25-minute run, and then they can walk 5 or 10 minutes as a continued part of the warm down, and then 20-minute easy run. So I just do like one run up and then one run down. And then like once they get that baseline, then you can kind of start playing with, okay, we can add more time or more intensity. I wouldn't add intensity and time at the same time, because that's increasing way too much too quickly, and that's going to cause an injury. So yeah. Yes, Kyle.
So you've talked a little bit about like, listening to your athlete and stuff like that. And each athlete's going to be a little bit different, but do you have like in an ideal situation, what a long run is going to look like for a new athlete by the end of the first semester, by the end of the first year, something like that? Like, do you have either time or volume distances that you're trying to get them to at a certain point? Like if everything is ideal, we'd like to be able to do this.
Yeah. I had an athlete last year that we did a run walk progression, and we got her up to about 40 to 45 minutes by the end of the season, for the longer runs. So I think that's kind of like a goal. And I would also say that I would honestly say it takes about a year to just kind of absorb the running training and like really adapt to it. But that's just kind of based off my experience.
I think so too. And that's what I was actually about to say. Like all of our kids that have come in from non-run backgrounds, or either not big run backgrounds, it really takes them, in my mind, about a full year until they get to where they're just doing normal day to day things with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Well, that's all I have.
I've probably got more questions,
Sure.
but I can ask these questions whenever. Anybody else have stuff? Okay. Jody?
Jody?
Yeah.
Yes, hi, thanks.
Hi.
Is it possible to get a copy of the slides? Did y'all already say that? And I just came in late.
Yeah, we can definitely send you those. And like, I'm happy to be a resource if you have any questions, and share workouts also of like what we've done in the past.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, this is just a really great presentation, and some of the stuff that you're saying is absolutely falls in line. I have my first senior, somebody that's been with me. She's going into her fourth year, and I look back to how she improved last season and my first year last season, and this is exactly right that it does. It takes, because nobody on my team was a previous runner, they were all swimmers, and so, and all the things that you talked about, dealing with shin splints, and this just really adds to giving more structure to some references that I was using as far as the run workouts and such. So great stuff, thank you.
I guess another thing that I've done too is like as you're starting to add in more volume, you can kind of do a combination of running and aqua jogging too. So I have them run first and then hop in the pool and do some aqua jogging. So that can also start to increase the adaptation without that high intensity feel on their bodies.
Hey, when you mentioned the mobility work, you said you do the mobility before strength training. Is that like doing the mobility before a strength training session, or you do a couple of weeks of mobility and then you phase in the strength training?
We always do mobility, every strength training program. So it's
Uh,
part of our warm up that we do the mobility.
and do you lead that, or is that your your trainer, strength
Um,
training conditioning
so
coach
our
leading
strength
that?
training, I do like talk to them at the beginning of the year and just like, okay, we jump right into racing season right away. So we just kind of lay out we do about 10 minutes of mobility in our warm up, and then in when we come back in January, when we're kind of building up for the spring season, that's when we do our main strength training volume because they're not racing as much. So we kind of do a really great foundation, and that's been really integral in injury prevention also.
Um, so, how do you go about, I guess, adding an intensity?
Mhm.
Do you have a kind of benchmark of when you think they're ready for that? How much do you normally kind of start them with? Do you have anything on that? Is that
Uh,
more of a like, I guess, do you start that on the track, or is it a, hey, we're going to run off the bike to start with this? Or like,
yeah.
how do you start adding an
We
intensity for
we've
them?
added the intensity on the track because it's just a controlled environment that we can do, and like they're not running like catching their toe and like tripping or something like that. Because like I don't know,
Mhm.
I'm thinking mostly of swimmers because swimmers are not the most
Yeah.
agile athletes in the world. So yeah, we do it on track. I would say we start with a pyramid of the 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, 4 minutes on, 1 minute off. And that's like our first like pyramid. And
Hmm.
then as they adapt, then you can go back down 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And then going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. So those would be kind of the starting points for a speed workout.
Okay. And so, like, you kind of, it sounds like, have a certain amount of time that you're looking for them to run at threshold ish or faster before you kind of start like actual
Mhm.
interval training and stuff.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess you're trying to build up to that maybe how much they're going to be running in a 5K. So if
Hmm.
you're trying to build up to like a 25 or 30 minutes broken up over the course of a workout, because that's about how much time they're going to hopefully be running, off the bike in a 5K.
Okay.
And then once they start doing that, then we'll start doing like 6 minutes on, 4 minutes off, 6 minutes on, 4 minutes off, 6 minutes on, 4 minutes off. Build it up to 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes on for 3 rounds. So
Hmm.
again, increasing that ability to hold the harder pace for a longer amount of time.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have some.
Keep going. Keep bringing them. I'm sure that
But
people don't
I
even
don't
know
want to
what
like
they
steal the questions.
go for.
So you were talking about, the bike and the run not being interchangeable, but kind of building on and playing off of each other a lot. More times than not, if you're having to build somebody's run, chances are you're having to build their bike too. They're not coming from a big bike background.
Mhm.
Do you have anything that you look for of like, we're going to prioritize the bike until we get to this point and then start working more on the run? Or like, is there any way that do you prioritize any of that? Or do you say, hey, like, I'm not that worried about this part of the bike, but we're going to focus on the run now? Or do you just kind of build those at the same pace?
Well, I guess the bike is not as high of intensity, but I start out with like 30 to 45 minutes at the beginning with somebody that's just coming in, and maybe like 45 to an hour for their longer rides. Um, and I mean, I'm doing this right now, but like rate of perceived exertion is also just not doing watts, because they're like, there's so many elements to getting on a bike. They're like, all right, you have to have your water bottle, you have to have your helmet, you have to have all your tires pumped up, and there's just like a million things you're thinking about. So I also think like trainer rides are good for beginners to start too, so they're not like thinking about clipping in and clipping out. And I guess this is a little bit off the run progression topic, but like teaching them how to clip in, clip out on like grass. So like if they fall over, they fall over in grass. And the transitions, like even starting from, if even if you're a really great athlete, transitions are so important to our sport. So just breaking it into small pieces, just like put your helmet on, take your helmet off, put your helmet on, take your helmet off. Katie Safaris does that, just like repetition over and over and over again. Put your shoes on, put your shoes off, put your shoes on, put your shoes off. But
I guess part of what I'm asking with that
I'm
is
kind of
like,
going all over it a little bit.
no, no,
Yeah,
no.
I think it
Is
depends on the athlete, their background,
Yeah.
and where they're coming from. So I guess most of the people that I've had do this run walk progression are coming from a swim background, so they can kind of swim however much, and that's not too much of an impact on their training. But I'll have them swim like 5 or 6 days a week, and then alternate one day of running, one day of biking, and like do three of each, and then have an off day on Sunday.
Okay. I guess that was my question is like, do you kind of try to build them evenly, or do you go, we're going to kill you on the bike until you can keep up on the bike? Because if you just get ridden through, like, it doesn't matter how you run. Like, do you have any prioritization there, or like, you kind of just build those kind of at the same pace? Because I think in the past, like, we've gone pretty bike heavy. I
Mm-hmm.
had some kids that are riding an hour and a half to 2 hours a few weeks into the season that have never ridden over
Mm-hmm.
like 45 minutes, because if you can't keep up on the bike, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you run 21 or 24 or 28 minutes. Like, if it takes you 45 minutes to get off the bike, it doesn't matter that much.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Maybe
didn't
I've
know.
been a little bit too conservative on the bike too. I think I sometimes am a little bit on more on the conservative side because I just don't want them to get injured. So I
Yeah.
build them up at the same time.
Okay.
But Yeah, biking is not as high of intensity, so I think you can build that a little bit more quickly than the run.
Okay. Hannah, did you have a question in there?
I was just gonna say I take that same approach. Like if you're getting lapped out on the bike and never get to the run, it doesn't
That's
matter. And I think the social element of that, like they want to come on rides with the other girls. So we do kind of that same thing you were saying, like they'll be riding an hour and a half, 2 hours with no cycling background pretty quickly. And it's
yeah.
a pretty low injury risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Now that I'm thinking, like we've gone on like group rides, and then like they just go for less time, and they kind of like jump in the van with me. I
Yeah,
sag
we do that too.
the rides, so they can still be like part of that team element, but they're not out there for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. I think we wound up pulling the run back a little bit more to kind of account for that at the beginning of the season. Like we have some kids that, maybe they did a year of track. They have a little bit of a background, but they don't run much to begin with because their legs are just dead from the amount of cycling that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had one more
I think like
thing.
I think it's also important to just like talk to other coaches and see what they're doing too. Like what I do, like I'm just like I'm learning from you guys just talking about this too. And so like I don't know everything about this. This is just kind of what I've done in the past and what's worked for me, but I think it's an evolving process, and that like this is important to have these discussions and to learn from each other. Sorry, what were you going to say, Kyle?
No, I've got one more. You talked about the Ultra G. Is that
Mhm.
something you guys have been using for a long period of time, short period of time? When you
We
guys?
got it about 2 years ago. We have it down in our weight room, and we just have one of them. But we've used it for people that are like building up their mileage, that just want to get to kind of that next level for their run. Um, and we've even just like incorporated it as like another easy run in the week. Just again, low impact, doing it on the Ultra G instead, and then like returning from an injury or progressing to more mileage.
Do you have anything you go off on that as far as like this pace at this weight? Because obviously, like the speed's a little bit different at 90% body weight versus 60% body weight and stuff like that. Or do you just kind of tell the athletes, hey, you know what this pace feels like? I need you to get up to this speed.
Yeah, we're doing it more like I guess by time for those, and just like kind of by effort for an easier run, and just like another added on time run. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Kyle, I haven't used it for college athletes, but I've used it for adult athletes in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And we do the same run. We do that run walk routine. So 1 minute on, 1 minute off. We do some things like that. And it's just based on, we'll start out at 20 30% of the body weight, depending on what the injury was, and then just gradually increase that up. But even the run walk on the ultra tree is works out.
Okay. I mean, we've had some athletes that have to do like, or having to do a lot of their runs and have had to do like track workouts and stuff on it, or like not track workouts, but interval workouts on it. I've got a calculator that shows this pace at this body weight calculates to this many miles per hour on it. But it seems there's like a little bit of a, at some point that just goes away. Like you get up to a certain speed, and I've got a couple of athletes that just have short legs and can't get the turnover on the treadmill. Um,
Mhm.
it seems like it works until you get down to like, for them, like under 6 minute pace, they start kind of like the legs just can't quite keep up on with the speed that it's going. I was just curious if anybody was doing any. Does anybody, I guess, have access to that, or is anybody doing interval workouts on that? Because it took us a little while to figure that out. We've had one for about 2 years now.
Our athletic trainers have one, but it's one of those like they have to okay the workout on it. So it's really only something we use for injury rehab, not just for run progression.
Okay.
You don't have fancy equipment, but I often have them do it on an elliptical. because it's
Mhm.
kind of the same idea where you don't have as much body weight, especially those coming back from injury.
Yeah. Okay.
Doug, did you have any questions or anything?
I was just going to say that I think one of the big takeaways for me listening to all this is moving from the concept of it to implementation,
Hmm.
right? That we might wrap our head around what needs to happen,
Hmm.
but then implementing it in that progressive way sometimes gets lost for me. So it's just nice to hear it again and just to
Yeah.
kind of say, okay, yeah, slow things down
Do
and
you
just make
use
sure we
like
progress.
periodization in your training, or how do you guys build out your training programs?
Yeah, we typically will do kind of like a 2 to 3 week block before we try to take a recovery week,
Mhm.
depending on how it flows with, race moments, um, or just, if it's a little bit more base building than not base building.
Mhm.
But I try to give that recovery week every, 2 to 3 weeks, and we do, just as a part of our aerobic training, we do a lot of the run walk stuff.
Mhm.
Some of my runners do it grudgingly, right? They don't like to take the walk breaks, but everybody else seems to flow with it pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, Doug, you're talking about like implementation of everything. I think that's one thing we've struggled with a little bit this year is anytime we bring in new athletes that like they don't have that background, they just tend to get a little kind of down that first year. We had two athletes this year that were pretty good athletes, but they just running's new-ish to them, and yeah, if anybody's got tips on that about how to kind of keep people in the game, and like we have examples on our team, like I can point and go, hey, this person 2 years ago was doing the exact same thing you're doing right now, but it's kind of hard to keep them motivated sometimes. They're like, well, they're not doing it right now. They're running a lot faster than me right now, and
Mhm.
kind of reminding them that it's not a short process. Like it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 year process. That's just kind of, I guess, a little easier said than done sometimes.
I don't know. I say to my athletes that like I want them to do triathlon for their lifetime. I don't want them to just do it for this 4 years. So I'm not just going to throw them at a wall and make them run for 40 miles a week starting out. So I think that that's another thing. And then if you can, I know they're all like about instant gratification and like I want to be good now, but trying to break it down into the smaller pieces and like it's hard. I feel like with our sport because you just run right into the season, right in the beginning of the fall. So it's just like trial by fire, especially as like a freshman or like coming in and maybe a transfer, something that you're converting into to a triathlete. But just trying to get them to see like one of my quotes that I like to say is the trees through the forest and the forest through the trees. Like, see what you're doing right now, but also like take a step back and like try to give yourself perspective. And so just looking at it through a lot of different lenses. And yeah,
Just thought of another question. If nobody else has one, I'm
running through the
also
trees.
trying to keep this kind of on a timeline. Do you have? Are you trying to build like as far as building volume per week? Do you get to a certain amount of time and then you're trying to add an extra day in, or is it I'm going to try to build up overall time first? Like, is it hey we're going to run 3 days a week until I can get up to a 45-minute run and then we'll add a day in, or is it a hey I'd like to go from 3 days to 4 days, but we're not going to do anything over 20 minutes? Like, how do you?
I would say that the next step after the three runs would be a brick run too, just to add another a little bit of time, but also just getting that feeling of running off the bike. We like the girls that are running the most are probably running 4 days a week and then plus a brick run.
Mhm.
So we're not running every single day for everybody, even like at the most advanced girls, because it is a harder thing on the body. And then we just have so many things to balance. So I would say, yeah, running off the bike would be the next step after you're hitting that 45-minute long run.
Okay. I think we do something kind of similar to that. Is they start with 3 days a week, and then it's a short run off the bike to add a fourth day in. And a lot of our athletes kind of do the same thing. They have 4 primary days, and then like the more advanced athletes may have a fifth or sixth day, but it's off the bike and it's a little bit shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else? Well, thank you guys for coming, and I'm excited to see the other topics, and hopefully I'll see you guys later on.